Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. And I was right. Artists don't matter. Isn't that a wonderful thought? And we have some nice, fresh, juicy evidence of it. The evidence of it is very simple. Valery Gergiev got his ass canned by just about every artistic organization that worked with him. And the reasoning and the logic is just fabulous. Now, I do not want to get into the somewhat self-righteousness of the performing arts organizations that feel that they are now on the side of the great and the good in canning his ass. I mean, they are. The truth is they are. It's that simple. I mean, this was such an easy call. I mean, could anything be simpler than taking Vladimir Putin's conductor puppet person and telling him to get lost? I mean, it was a no-brainer. It really was. And I completely support it. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for it. But there's a deeper issue here because the musical angle that I would like to get at is the fact that Gergiev was running around like a madman, as he usually does, conducting everything everywhere, and I believe sparing nary a thought about what it was, but just doing it. I mean, here's a guy who has done so much, conducted so many records. It's just such a busy schedule. And now, poof, he's gone. And it's not going to make any difference at all. Not a bit. And I just think that's such a wonderful, salutary position to take. Now, if he has some sort of monstrously inflated ego, as I suspect he may, then there's a lesson there for that too, a personal one for him. But for us as listeners, who is going to miss him? What are we going to miss about him? What isn't going to get done that would have gotten done that our lives would have been transformed by? The answer is nothing. Now, Gergiev was not always an artist who didn't matter. He started out as an artist who mattered. Why? Because he raised the level of the Mariinsky Theater. He brought it to international attention once again, and he made fabulous recordings like this, for example, of 6 Prokofiev operas. This is the Kirov Opera and Orchestra of the Mariinsky Theater. Wonderful, wonderful performances. The Rimsky-Korsakov operas, all kinds of Russian repertoire that we would never otherwise have heard. Very well performed, very well recorded. That mattered. It didn't quite matter as much as the works themselves and the composers who wrote them, but it mattered in bringing that music to life and to the public at a very high level. And good for him, I say. But now he's just running around playing the same old stuff everybody else is doing. And who cares? I mean, are we really going to miss the next incarnation of this, his complete Bruckner? Yeah, this Bruckner cycle, which is just awful in every way, or his London Mahler cycle. Yeah, see? You don't usually get him to act up for Mahler, but they make an exception in Gergiev's case. And that's the truth. But I want to read a couple statements of the logic behind the dismissal. Oh, this is just beyond juicy. I love it. Let's first look at the statement of the Rotterdam Philharmonic and associated organs, which has this is a very nice statement. Here we go. You ready? This is their press release. I love looking at these press releases. I mean, they're just so much fun. Here we go. The Rotterdam Philharmonic Orchestra and the board of the Rotterdam Philharmonic Festivals, organizer of the Gergiev Festival, I mean, who even knew there was a Gergiev Festival, have taken the decision to terminate their relationship with Valery Gergiev with immediate effect. Pow! Following last week's invasion of Ukraine by Russia, Valery Gergiev was invited to respond and to publicly distance himself from the acts of President Putin in Ukraine. In anticipation of any response, we had suspended our relationship with the conductor as indicated in a press release dated last Friday. Yesterday evening, we were able to contact Mr. Gergiev. However, at the end of this conversation, insurmountable differences remained. So we canned his ass. Oh, pardon me. That was just me. The Rotterdam Philharmonic Orchestra and the Rotterdam Philharmonic Festivals therefore consider they have no choice but to can his ass. No, but to terminate their relationship with the conductor. Concerts with Mr. Gergiev will be canceled. Likewise, the NTR Saturday Matinee. The Gergiev Festival will also be disbanded. This action ends a very close relationship between the Rotterdam Philharmonic Orchestra and Valery Gergiev stretching back to 1988. Although from an artistic perspective, bringing an end to this relationship has been a painful decision. Neither organization can see any way forward. We are currently looking into alternatives for the programs already scheduled. You see, that's the point. The show will go on. The alternatives will appear. Many of them will be vastly superior to what they already had with Maestro Gergiev. And that's what happens when your ass gets canned. Nothing. You're canned. The rest of the musical world goes on listening to the same old stuff that you were going to play. So what difference did he make? Zippo! Let's take a look in greater depth now with the New York Times article. Valery Gergiev, a Putin ally, fired as chief conductor in Munich. So this was dated today and written by Javier C. Hernandez. This is great. This is just juicy, juicy stuff, I have to tell you. I mean, you have to hear like a large bit of this article. It's so marvelous. Valery Gergiev, the star Russian maestro and prominent supporter of President Vladimir V. Putin of Russia, had his ass canned Tuesday. Was removed Tuesday from his post as chief conductor of the Munich Philharmonic after he refused to denounce Mr. Putin's invasion of Ukraine. If only that could have happened before this horror show showed up, that would have really been good. But okay. And Anna Netrebko, the Russian diva, who is one of opera's biggest international stars and also has ties to Mr. Putin, saw her upcoming engagements with the Bavarian State Opera canceled, and the Zurich Opera House announced that she had withdrawn from her next performance there. She canned her own ass. Yay, go Anna. Mr. Gergiev's abrupt dismissal 3 years before his contract was set to expire was the biggest setback yet for the conductor, who has been the target of widespread anger and condemnation, and rightly so, in recent days for his long record of support for Mr. Putin, whom he has known for 3 decades. Dieter Reiter, the mayor of Munich, said that Mr. Gergiev, who had held the post of chief conductor there since 2015, had failed to respond to a demand issued on Friday by Mr. Reiter that he condemn Mr. Putin's, quote, brutal war of aggression, unquote, by Monday or be fired. I would have expected him to reconsider and revise his very positive assessment of Russia's leader, Mr. Reiter said in a statement. He didn't. No way he would. Mr. Gergiev was also dismissed on Tuesday from his position as honorary conductor of the Rotterdam Philharmonic Orchestra. The orchestra's managers, who had also recently asked Mr. Gergiev to denounce Mr. Putin, said in a statement that they had spoken with Mr. Gergiev, but he could not resolve an unbridgeable divide. The orchestra said it was canning his ass, and eliminating its Gergiev festival. Mr. Gergiev did not respond to a request for comment on Tuesday. Ms. Netrebko also came under fire for her ties to Mr. Putin, who has awarded her prizes and praised her artistry. Ms. Netrebko endorsed his re-election bid and has at times appeared to lend support to his policies, including in 2014 when she was pictured holding a flag used by some Russian-backed separatist groups in Ukraine. Smart, Anna. Then again, opera singers, they're not known for being, the brightest. What they have is a voice. It's a mechanical thing. Wed that to intelligence, well, that's a kind of a random thing. You can't really tell, can you? So, while she had in recent days sought some distance from the invasion, a little bit, Issuing a statement over the weekend saying she opposed the war, she has remained silent on Mr. Putin. The director of the Zurich Opera House, Andreas Homoki, called Mr. Netrebko's statements, this is wonderful, you just got to hear this. Talk about doublespeak. Mr. Netrebko's statement condemning the war a, quote, positive development, unquote, and said the company did not, quote, consider it appropriate to judge the decisions and actions of citizens of repressive regimes based on the perspective of those living in a Western European democracy, unquote. But Mr. Homoki went on to note that the Opera House's, quote, decisive condemnation, unquote, of Mr. Putin and his actions was, quote, not compatible with Ms. Netrebko's public position, unquote. He said that Mr. Netrebko had decided not to sing in the upcoming performances and relayed a statement from her that said, quote, this is not a time for me to make music and perform. I have therefore decided to take a step back from performing for the time being. It is an extremely difficult decision for me, but I know that my audience will understand and respect this decision because they were going to can my ass no matter what I did. Exactly the point. After the cancellation was announced on Tuesday, Ms. Netrebko posted a picture on Instagram of herself with Mr. Gergiev smiling after a concert. Then in a separate post she wrote, quote, as I have said, I am opposed to this senseless war of aggression, and I am calling on Russia to end this war right now, to save all of us. We need peace right now, unquote. Both posts were then deleted. Not surprisingly. The Metropolitan Opera did not make any announcement regarding Ms. Netrebko's scheduled appearances this spring, but Peter Gelb, its general manager, said in an interview on Tuesday that, quote, the Met stands by its position that artists who support Putin are not going to be allowed to perform at the Met. We are going to can their ass. You see? Unquote. Asked about Mr. Netrebko's statement opposing the war, Mr. Gelb said, quote, in the case of somebody who is so closely associated with Putin, denouncing the war is not enough, unquote. Before the Met performed Verdi's Don Carlos on Monday evening, the company performed the Ukrainian national anthem. Actually, I really think all of this is wonderful. The solidarity, it's a beautiful thing. It truly is. The fast-moving events showed how quickly arts organizations around the world had moved to sever ties with some of Russia's most prominent cultural ambassadors since the start of Mr. Putin's invasion on Thursday. And do you think Putin cares? Really? Mr. Gergiev had lost a number of engagements in the days that followed, but the loss of his leadership position at the helm of a major European orchestra suggested much more serious ramifications for his international career. It is a stunning turnaround for Mr. Gergiev, whose packed schedule and regular engagements with many of the world's leading concert halls and opera houses has led the website Bach Track, which collects statistics on classical music performances, to proclaim him the world's busiest conductor in several recent seasons. And hasn't the standard of music worldwide just risen immeasurably because of that, right? Yeah, right, yeah. Mr. Gergiev endorsed Mr. Putin's re-election and appeared at concerts in Russia and abroad to promote his policies. The two have known each other since the early 1990s when Mr. Putin was an official in St. Petersburg, and Mr. Gergiev was beginning his tenure as the leader of the Mariinsky, then called the Kirov. Mr. Putin has played an important role in Mr. Gergiev's success, providing funding to the Mariinsky Theater, where Mr. Gergiev serves as general and artistic director. Mr. Gergiev's international engagements began drying up last week when Carnegie Hall and the Vienna Philharmonic dropped him from a series of performances. On Sunday, Mr. Gergiev's manager announced he was ending his relationship with his client. The manager, Marcus Felsner, said in a statement that it had become impossible to defend Mr. Gergiev, whom he described as one of the greatest conductors of all time. Well, he's his manager. He has to. A visionary artist, loved and admired by many of us who will not or cannot publicly end his long expressed support for a regime that has come to commit such crimes. Therefore, I have canned his ass. Yes. On Monday, the fallout continued with the Verbier Festival in Switzerland, saying it had asked for and accepted Mr. Gergiev's ass as music director of the festival's orchestra. The festival also said it would ban other artists who had shown support for Mr. Putin's action, said it would return donations from individuals under sanction from Western governments. The Edinburgh International Festival in Scotland, where Mr. Gergiev served as honorary president, also said Monday that he had resigned his position or risk having his ass canned. Philharmonie de Paris, a performing arts complex in France, announced it was canceling 2 concerts in April with Mr. Gergiev, and the Mariinsky Orchestra and the Lucerne Festival in Switzerland said it was canceling 2 performances in August with Mr. Gergiev and the Mariinsky. In view of Russia's acts of war in violation of international law, we are sending a clear signal of solidarity to the people of Ukraine by canning his ass. Michael Haflinger, the festival's executive and artistic director, said in a statement. Shortly after the mayor of Munich announced his decision on Tuesday, a spokesman for the Elbe Philharmonic in Hamburg, Germany, another major concert hall, said it too had canned Mr. Gergiev's ass. Several other institutions are considering similar moves, including Teatro alla Scala in Milan, and getting your ass canned at La Scala is particularly humiliating. Usually they wait till you're actually conducting before they try to can your ass. They do it in mid-performance there, you see. So there it is. There it is. The fascinating thing for me in all this isn't that Gergiev got what he deserved. He did. He did, and I think that these organizations, aside from the usual self-righteousness, are doing the absolutely the right thing, the moral thing, and the only possible thing, really. Honestly, if FIFA can tell Russian soccer or football that they cannot compete in the world stage as long as Russia is invading Ukraine, do you think the performing arts are going to sit by and let mere athletes, have the moral upper hand? No, it's impossible. It's never going to happen. But what really fascinates me is we're not going to miss him. We're not going to miss any of these people because artists don't matter unless they perform music which is somehow unique or special or different. But if they're all running around doing the same old stuff, they are 100% expendable. And we are now going to see the wonderful, 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 fabulous, entertaining spectacle of all of these performing arts organizations running around, hiring other people, and telling us that everything is just as fabulous as it was before Gergiev got his ass canned. That whatever is coming is marvelous, is going to be completely wonderful, completely irresistible, totally necessary and essential to the cultural well-being of the universe. Yeah, right. But, we can always can their ass. That's the position they're in. And I, for one, find it quite salutary to see it happening to the wonderful world of the performing arts and the bullshit that it peddles 9 times out of 10. That's just my feeling about it, friends. Call me cynical. It's okay. Keep on listening. Talk to you soon. Take care.